This is your AEW Dynamite analysis and review video here on the official Wrestling News 365 YouTube channel. This week, AEW presented a special Bash at the Beach edition of Dynamite from the Watsco Center in Miami, Florida. Overall, I thought this was a good show. Most of the Dynamite shows we are accustomed to now are good shows, and I thought this was no different. I thought the women's match absolutely sucked and it had the potential to kill the crowd, which it did, quite frankly, for a period of time. But apart from that period of time where we had the women's match, which was followed by a Dark Order segment, which I didn't think went over particularly well, which was back-to-back. So that was a period of time where the show was really at a low. Apart from that, if you took that out, I thought it was a very good show. There wasn't really much to the Bash at the Beach theme, really, I thought. You had the AEW Dynamite set that we have every week, but it was slightly dressed up to fit in with the Bash at the Beach theme. So you had some surfboards put on there, some palm trees. You had a woman sitting in a lifeguard chair. You had a little bit of sand, and I stress a little bit of sand. I thought that when you look at those old WCW Bash at the Beach pay-per-view sets, they had so much sand there, and it really did feel beach-like. Whereas this set just kind of, to me, I mean, it looked great, but it kind of, to me, just felt like I said, it was the Dynamite set dressed up to try and be like Bash at the Beach. It was cosplaying a Bash at the Beach pay-per-view set as opposed to being something unique and different. And I know it's not its own event, it's only a special themed edition of Dynamite, so that would make sense, I suppose, with the setting, but I felt they could have done more with the production side of it in terms of the Bash at the Beach sets. You had Justin Roberts wearing sort of beach wear, you had the announcers wearing Hawaiian shirts to fit in with the Bash at the Beach theme, which was fine, but like I said, I just felt they could have done slightly more with it. Now, next week, I think they will do more with the theme. Obviously, next week's shows on board of the Jericho Rock and Rager Cruise at Sea, Part 2. So that should be more in keeping with the Bash at the Beach theme. Of course, it's going to be actually at sea. The ring and setup is going to be aboard a cruise ship. That whole visual is going to look a lot different, isn't it, there? So I think they'll do more with the Bash at the Beach theme next week. I mean, I like to think back to these the old WCW Spring Break shows of Nitro that they used to do, where they used to have the ring in the middle of a swimming pool. They had a swimming pool to the side. I mean, the iconic thing, isn't it, of Kevin Nash doing the cannonball into the pool and having Scott Hall being thrown by the Giant into the pool. Those kind of visuals were, I suppose, not what I was expecting for this show, because that would probably be a reach too far. But I think next week, that's what they could do. So maybe they double down more on the Bash at the Beach theme next week. But to be honest, that whole set design and production design is probably me nitpicking. I thought it was a good show once again. Not perfect, and the show certainly had its flaws, but that's Dynamite, I think. You have great matches, but certain creative decisions are just a bit too much and don't work. The women's division certainly needs improvement, and we'll go into that shortly. But overall, I thought it was a good show. So first up to open the show, we had the number one contender tag team for the tag team championships fatal four-way tag team match. A bit of a mouthful that is, isn't it? Which was Kenny Omega versus Hangman Adam Page. We had a proud and powerful Santana and Ortiz against the Best Friends, Chucky Taylor, and Trent against the Young Bucks. Didn't have any entrances here. All the competitors were already in the ring. We just had some ring introductions from Justin Roberts. Obviously, they were conscious on time here. Obviously, Dynamite has to go off the air at exactly 10 p.m. They don't have much of an overrun for this show, so they were keen to get the action going. The winners of the match will face the tag team champions, SCU, next week aboard the Jericho Cruise. They also stated that this match had the number 1, 2, 3, and 4 tag teams in the match. Jim Ross did a nice line here where he referred to Hangman as the Dark Horse, which I thought was obviously plays up this new side to the character that we're seeing recently, where Hangman Adam Page is getting more and more conflicted. He's distancing himself from the Elite. But the fact that, obviously, the phrase "the Dark Horse," he was referring to their team in the match, of course. But I think also, it sounds slightly Dark Order-like. I speculated previously that Hangman Adam Page could be the Exalted One in the Dark Order. I don't think he will be, because of the vignette that we saw later on in the evening, which we'll touch on in a bit. But I thought it was a nice line there from JR. In the match, we had a spot. There was a couple of spots in this match where I wasn't too keen on, shall we say. We had a spot where Matt Jackson and Kenny Omega are facing off in the ring. And Proud and Powerful just jump in and attack them both and then force Matt Jackson to do the tag. Now, Chris Jericho touched on in an interview recently that he had to have a word with the AEW roster and the AEW officials that in terms of the tag team match, they were burying the officials, in his word. That there were no tags, there was no enforcement of the rules, there was no logic, there was no psychology to some of these tag team matches. And he singled out the Lucha Brothers specifically for not making tags. I believe it was on Conan's podcast, actually, and Conan explained to him that currently in Mexico, the psychology in terms of tag team wrestling, in terms of tags, frequent tags, all of that stuff just isn't there. And Chris Jericho had to relay that onto the AEW officials, and that it just wasn't good enough. There need to be logic and psychology to storytelling. You're burying the officials. There's no legitimacy there. And again with this one, when they jumped in, Santana and Ortiz, and essentially forced themselves to be tagged by Matt Jackson, again, I just thought the referee, when they were attacking Matt Jackson and Kenny Omega in the ring, why wouldn't the referee, threaten disqualification? They've jumped in the ring for no reason and then forced the tag, and the referee just allowed it. It's those little things that I think people are highly critical of All Elite Wrestling with, and there's reason behind it. I mean, it makes sense. The problem is just sometimes they really want to do the spot, but in detriment of the storytelling behind it, and I think that's the problem. That's the problem there. We had Matt Jackson do his rolling Northern Light suplexes, but Trent Beretta countered into a nice tornado DDT. I noticed during this, and I kind of touched on it during the opener, that when the hard camera just was on the ring, you would have had no idea this was a Bash at the Beach show. It wasn't lit differently. If you just tuned into Dynamite then, you'd have been like, well, there's no Bash at the Beach thing here. There's just, it's the ring skirt, the whole ring side is the same. The crowd isn't lit differently. The cameras aren't done differently. As I said, it's nitpicking, but I thought they could have done more in terms of the Bash at the Beach theme there. And it really stood out to me in the opening match of, this is just another episode of Dynamite. It doesn't feel like there's any real difference here. It's just some slight, drapings of Bash at the Beach. Like I said, I think they'll do something about it next week, but that was me nitpicking. We had Proud and Powerful do dives onto the outside, onto the competitors, because, of course, it's AEW. Ortiz has no more cornrows as well. He is back to the afro look for one of the members of Proud and Powerful. They then did this spot, Proud and Powerful, which I really like, the delayed vertical suplex spot. Now, I like the delayed vertical suplex spot by a singles competitor anyway. I think it's really impressive how long they can hold them up there, and how not just the person that's doing it, but the wrestler that's receiving it has to balance themselves perfectly on the body of the competitor. It's a really impressive spot. But Proud and Powerful do this spot where they'll have, say Santana has someone in the delayed vertical suplex. He'll walk over to his corner, tag Ortiz, and then pass him off to Ortiz, who will continue the delayed vertical suplex and hit it. I just love that spot. I think it's a great spot. We had a running shooting star press by Adam Page onto Trent, which was followed by a moonsault by Kenny Omega. And then Hangman goes up to the top, and you're thinking, to do a moonsault onto Trent Beretta. But he just hits a moonsault onto the outside, which was awesome, to be fair. It was a great spot. This is followed by an Escalera by Santana to the outside. So many spots going on. Matt Jackson's it's a superplex to Trent onto all the competitors on the outside. Now, this spot is way overdone. CM Punk did a tweet when it happened on Raw a few weeks ago. I don't have the tweet in front of me at the moment, but essentially it was, can we stop doing the spot where all the competitors fight on the outside, looking up to the to the turnbuckle, waiting for the person to fall on them so they can catch them? Can we leave that in the last decade? And I tend to agree. I don't mind the spot itself, but I don't like how obvious it is. They're sort of fighting, and I put that in quotation marks and use the term fighting very loosely there, because they're sort of patting each other on the side and the face, but the whole time they're looking up. The whole time they're looking up, waiting, okay, when are they going to come down? When are they going to come down? When are we going to catch them? And that's fine, because obviously the safety of the people in the match, the safety of your co-workers is the most important thing. But come on, make it a little bit more, less obvious. It's so obvious when they're looking up, waiting for it. And it's one of those little things, but it just, when you notice it, it takes you out of the match and it takes you out of the moment. And that's what professional wrestling is. It's all about suspension of disbelief. Anything that takes you out of that is a detriment to the match and a detriment ultimately to the show. We had the ref, Rick Knox, or as JR once called him, Mike Knox, little ECW throwback, knocked out. And then we had another spot, which was an eye roller for me, where all 8 competitors are sort of locked up in a type of, I wouldn't even know how to describe it, like in rugby you have a scrum, or in American football when they're sort of in that sort of huddle. It was like that, but they were all trying to suplex each other. So you had 4 people trying to suplex 4 people. Yeah. Orange Cassidy then comes in and assists aside to suplex the 4 guys. Again, this is one of those spots that I know why they do it, because I know why they do the spot, because they think it's fun and they think it's different and the crowd hasn't seen it before. But there's a reason why we haven't seen it before, because there's no logic there. There is no logic there. Professional wrestling is a simulated fight. It's a simulated shoot. They spent years and years trying to pretend it was a shoot and have that suspension of disbelief for the crowd. Spots like this, they are fun, and they are professional wrestling in 2020, and people don't like it. Some people find it funny and interesting and different. For me, it just lacks logic. That it's too much. You don't need to do it. Where's the logic behind that? Where's the storytelling behind that? That's moving more towards the performance side of professional wrestling, which is where professional wrestling is going ultimately. Let's be honest here. It's moving towards a choreographed stunt show as opposed to a stimulated shoot. Like I said, there's just no logic in it. There's no logic in that spot. Why would one of the people not just go, you know what, screws it, he can kick the other person opposite him in the gut? The person next to him, say Santana was on one side, the person next to him wouldn't be Ortiz. Why wouldn't he just start attacking the person next to him if it's a shoot? It's not his tag team partner. Every team for themselves, right? So yeah, I didn't like that. It wasn't for me, and I get it. That's professional wrestling now, but it doesn't mean I have to like it. We then had the finish, which was the Young Bucks doing the majority of the work on Trent Beretta. They're looking like they're going to get the victory. Hangman Adam Page tags in Matt Jackson by a blind tag whilst they're doing the beatdown to Trent Beretta. Which then leads to the V-trigger and buckshot combination to Trent Beretta for the victory. So your number 1 contenders are Hangman and Adam Page and Kenny Omega facing SCU for the AEW Tag Team Championships next week on the Jericho Cruise. Now, post-match, the Young Bucks looked hot at KO and Hangman, we did all the work, what the hell? Why did you guys do the blind tag? I can't believe that, I thought you were our friends. Again, really dumb. Really dumb. Matt Jackson needs to realise in storyline, of course, that it's every man for himself. Why wouldn't the other person tag in? They're noticing one of their opponents is near defeat. Why wouldn't you tag in and try and steal the victory? I guess they're trying to say, oh, you're a good sportsmanship, but even the commentators were like, why are they getting angry? It's the rules of the match. Anyway, they cool down and raise hands, but yeah, Young Bucks, why are you so angry? There's no logic in that one. The Young Bucks did look a bit silly. But overall, I thought it was a good match. The crowd was into it, of course. It was very spot heavy and a bit of a cluster at times, but That's what you're going to get in these multiple man tag team matches. They can very quickly become a cluster, and especially in terms of a Young Buck match where there isn't a lot of in between the spots, it's just spot, spot, spot. That's multiplied in a match where you've got two other tag teams in there. So, but I thought they managed it fairly well, and like I said, the crowd was into it, so you can't fault them. It was a typical Young Bucks match. So, like I said, next week we have SCU versus Kevin Owens and Hangman for the AEW Tag Team Championship. It would appear that Hangman, it's inevitable at this point, isn't it? The Hangman's going to turn heel at some point on Kenny Omega. It's just a case of when. I think next week could be the perfect time, of course. Some people would say that, AEW's been, we're going to focus so much on this tag team division, we're going to build up the tag team division, and then three of your best tag teams here get beaten by essentially two singles guys put together. It's a bit of a WWE move there, isn't it? People will say, oh, no, well, they were part of the Elite, they've tag teamed together for a while, blah, blah, blah. But regardless, it does hurt the tag team division, I think. That's just me. But next week, the match between SCU and Omega and Page should be awesome. Look out, I would say, for a Hangman turn, because I think it has potential in that match. Or, of course, they lose the match fair and square, but once again, it's maybe it's Adam Page's fault. Maybe it's a miscommunication from Kenny Omega. Maybe they tease that out a little bit longer. So maybe they don't have the full turn next week, but the seeds will certainly be planted. I'm sure of that. Now, later on in the night, we had a backstage promo with SCU, Daniels, Kazarian, Scorpio Sky, who were talking about defending the titles next week on the cruise. And Hangman Adam Page interrupts drinking once again. SCU get hot and angry about why is he interrupting their promo. Kenny Omega comes along and diffuses the situation. Says, next week we'll face each other. It's a gentleman's contest and may the best team win. And they sort of walk off. So they're teasing that Adam Page has this I don't care attitude. And once again, he is drinking. Adam Page at this point has a massive drinking issue on live TV. It's outrageous, isn't it? But I thought, like I said, the match was good. Spot heavy. Some spots didn't make any sense, but that's a Young Bucks match. So I thought it was good. Next up, we had Cody Rhodes out to respond to MJF's stipulation he laid out last week in order for Cody to face him at AEW Revolution in February. Cody Rhodes here was in some real Miami Vice attire. He wore sort of a white suit and a sky blue t-shirt, very Bash at the Beach appropriate, very Don Johnson look-alike. Probably the best part of the whole Bash at the Beach theme was seeing this outfit from Cody Rhodes. This was out there. This was, has to be seen to be believed. He shows the stipulations set by MJF last week on the screen. He talks about how Wardlow carries MJF's bags, but it should be the other way round. The crowd then chants "Bag Boy" in reference to MJF. He talks about the stipulation where MJF said that Cody can't touch him until AEW Revolution, the typical pro wrestling stipulation there. He says that he's living rent-free in MJF's head. He doesn't need to touch MJF because he's already in his head. Says that MJF is stalling and talks about MJF being on the Rosie O'Donnell show when he was a kid and that he had a pageant parents, and says that MJF is bolstered by the old timers who says he's an old school heel. Is that a shot at Jim Cornette? Because that feels like a very Jim Cornette-esque shot, or maybe that's just a wink at the professional wrestling industry. I don't know. But, I thought that was an interesting line there by Cody Rhodes. He says he accepts the stipulation to fade Wardlow in a steel cage. He accepts the no-touch rule at AEW Revolution. And he accepts the whip stipulation that Cody Rhodes would have to be whipped. Is it 10 times on live television in front of his family at ringside? We found out later on in the show that this cage match with Wardlow will happen on the February 19th episode of AEW Dynamite in Atlanta, Georgia, which is 10 days prior to AEW Revolution. And Cody Rhodes says at Revolution he will give MJF his own scar, referring to that new scar that Cody Rhodes has from his match at Full Gear where he jumped and hit his head on the entrance ramp. I thought this was a fine promo from Cody. It was obvious that he was going to accept the stipulations, isn't it? He was hardly going to come out and go, actually, no, you know what? Those stipulations are a bit too heavy for me. No thanks. So when they didn't accept last week, it was just delaying the inevitable, really, wasn't it? But like I said previously, I think the no-touch one is a given. It just builds up the anticipation for their match at AEW Revolution. The steel cage match with Wardlow, I think, will be a decent match. I haven't seen much of Wardlow's work, so I wouldn't know how good of a hand he is in the ring. But to be honest, I assume that match will have lots of bells and whistles anyway. That will have interference from MJF. That will have anything so Cody doesn't win, or MJF tries anything so Cody doesn't win. And you know what? Perhaps Cody doesn't win that match, but perhaps he loses because MJF screws him, and they find another way for Cody to face him at Revolution. I could see that happening too, but to be honest, it could be a lot more likely that just Cody goes out there and wins that one. In terms of the whipping one stipulation, like I said before, is it corny? Is it over the top? Yes. But it's old school professional wrestling for me. And just think of the drama. Think of the drama that stipulation gives. You have a situation where on national TV you've got Cody's mother at ringside. She was there at Full Gear, showing some great facials and reactions to what was happening in the ring. Like the same thing what happened in this. She's there. She's got tears in her eyes. She's crying. Dustin Rhodes is out there. He's consoling his stepmother, or Cody's mother. I don't think they don't share the same mother. I don't think. But yeah, he's there consoling her. People are crying. MJF is whipping him, and it's all because Cody is desperate to get his hands on this smarmy ex-best friend who double-crossed him. And that's drama. That's great TV. So I don't have any problem with these stipulations. I thought it was a fine promo. Cody is one of the best on the mic in AEW. Probably, Jericho and Moxley are above him in that respect, but Cody's up there in terms of the best on the mic. So I thought this was fine, and it just progresses the MJF storyline nicely. Next, we had a Joey Janela backstage promo. He talks about being punched in the balls by Penelope Ford, his ex-girlfriend, a couple of weeks ago on Dynamite. Or was it last week on Dynamite? I forget. Time moves so quickly nowadays, doesn't it? With so much wrestling going on. He says that her and her new beau, Kip Sabian, will see why he's a bad, bad boy. This was a bit of a nothing promo, to be honest. I didn't think it was particularly bad, but I didn't think it was particularly good. I just didn't think that, it didn't feel to me like Joey Janela was really believing what he said. It just kind of felt like, those promos where they just feel like words and it doesn't feel like there's anything behind them. And I know this is AEW trying to shine a spotlight on their new stars, trying to shine a spotlight on their characters, and let's face it, Joey Janela behind the scenes on social media is a hell of a character. I just feel like he struggles sometimes to transition that in front of the camera, when he's on TV, when he's on pay-per-view or anything like that. So I just didn't really care. I just didn't really care when this promo was going on. It just felt like, why should I care? They haven't given me a reason to care. Now, maybe that would change in the coming weeks, but it just wasn't there for me, this one. And then it all went downhill for a period of time. Next, we had Mel and Brandy Rhodes with Luther, of course, the Nightmare Collective, as they're called, against Chris Statlander and Hikaru Shida. To start off the match, we had Luther blocking Shida's entrance, where Brandy and Mel attacked Statlander. Statlander then, again, like I said, it just went downhill from here. Statlander goes to kick Mel, who's on the outside. Statlander's on the apron. I mean, just completely missed her and slaps her leg, but Mel sold it anyway. And then did a sort of moonsault shooting star press off the apron and just completely missed Mel, but she fell over anyway. So, I mean, just a laughable botch, really. The crowd was just dead, which says a lot for an AEW crowd, especially off such a hot open like they had with the tag team match. Brandy last week on social media, she bragged about how well the Nightmare Collective did in the ratings, that this was one of the only quarter ratings that actually grew than at other point on the show, and they did so well. Let's see how they do this week. On the opposite side, I don't want to get into NXT spoilers too much in case you haven't seen the show, but on the opposite side, this was opposite a Tommaso Ciampa promo, an Undisputed Era attack, and a DIY reunion. So I would be stunned. if once again this was a segment that gained viewers. The only reason, like I said last week, that it would have gained viewers, the quarter hour, was because it started off with a really hot match with Kenny Omega and Adam Page, and people went, you know what, that match was awesome. What else has Dynamite got? Click. They see the Nightmare Collective, click, off. It was just, it was stupid. I hate when people brag about quarter ratings because you have to think what comes before and after them and what's happening during them. Quarter ratings, to be honest, they're more about what's the lead-in. That's the most important point. Eric Bischoff said it before, that people would come to him when he was the president of WCW, and they would come up to him and say, look, I want a raise, look how well my quarter ratings were. And he would go, wow, what happened in the quarter rating, and also what happened before the quarter rating. If your lead-in to your quarter rating was an NWO angle, of course your quarter rating's going to be high. People were already watching. So that argument that Brandy Rhodes there was nonsensical, to be honest, to me. And it will be interesting to see how this did against it. Mal, this was her first time we saw her in the ring. She's a big competitor, tall. JR speculated that she was about 6'2". I thought she just looked clunky and looked very awkward in the ring, very slow. We had Chris Statlander tagged in as well as Brandy Rhodes, and Brandy tried to run away. A Michinoku driver was hit by Statlander to Brandy Rhodes, but Mal broke it up. Shida hit a missile drop kick. I say hit, she didn't hit it. She completely missed Mal, but once again she sold it anyway, so another botch. This match was just botch-ridden. And Statlander gets the win with a cradle tombstone like pile driver right on the crown of Mal, so they get the win. This, like I said, this was just an ugly match. This was really, really poor. I've been highly critical of the AEW Women's Division, that I think it needs work, I think it needs star power, it needs more than one match a week, but if this is the only match you're giving us in the AEW Women's Division this week on Dynamite, then quite frankly, Dynamite should be ashamed. People are criticising Brandy Rhodes saying she shouldn't be in the ring, I don't have a problem with her being in the ring, I have a problem with the matches being bad like this. You can put Brandy Rhodes in the ring later on, once the division is established and once you have credible stars that can work around Brandy's deficiencies in the ring. But this was poor. I would hope that the AEW coaches, the likes of Dean Malenko, you have an Arn Anderson back there, Billy Gunn, as well as the executive vice presidents and the veterans back there, like Chris Jericho, once they came through the curtain, I hope they would say to him, look, that match was not good enough. That's not AEW. That's not elite competitiveness. AEW can do a lot better. Now, I understand you have matches where things just don't work out. The momentum isn't there. It's just botch after botch. The chemistry doesn't work. But this was a detriment to the show, and it really did kill the crowd for a period of time. And when it starts affecting the show like that, not just your segment, then that's a cause for concern. And, where was Britt Baker this week? Where was Riho? Where is your world champion, the face of your division? Britt Baker said to her in the storyline that she wasn't happy that she's not there every week, but, hey, it's true. If you're going to build your division around a star, they have to be there initially. They have to. Riho isn't a Brock Lesnar. She's not that kind of star. The booking of this division is bizarre. The quality of matches just, quite frankly, isn't there. The best match they had was a few weeks ago, where they had the Fatal 4-Way Women's Championship match. You had the likes of Nyla Rose, Hikaru Shida, Riho, Britt Baker in that match. Nyla Rose, if the talent isn't there to have these great 20-minute matches, why not just put the title on Nyla Rose and have her just beat the hell out of people every week? Make her a Goldberg. At least the matches are something different. I mean, she's putting guys through tables left, right, and centre. The crowd will pop at that. Just AEW can do so much better with this women's division. It's the thing that is really, really dragging down the show and the company. It's my biggest criticism so far. Now, obviously, we mentioned yesterday that they've been renewed through 2023, so it's not going to kill the company or anything drastic like that. But they need to address it, because it's just every week it just seems like every time you watch it, you just go, oh, they could do so much better. We had a Dark Order promo or vignette where we had the guy who does the sort of recruitment videos, presenting a presentation to what we would assume to be the Exalted One. He was off camera speaking in a distorted voice, so we don't know who it is. He talks about trying to acquire Michael Nakazawa, maybe Kenny Omega, Talks about trying to acquire Brandon Cutler. They also reference Hangman Adam Page. They said this might be the perfect time to acquire him, considering he's distanced himself from the Elite and he's in a different mind space. He's vulnerable, so it's the perfect time for the Dark Order to acquire him and bring him into the Dark Order. The Exalted One then says they must continue to attack the Elite and show they're not as powerful as the Dark Order. This one was a bit, a bit nothing to me. The Dark Order's been very hit and miss for me. I liked the initial Dark Order vignettes when they changed into this cult-like faction where they bring in vulnerable people into their way to improve them and improve their way of life, and then realistically it's a cult to serve a grandiose leader. I liked that. They had their main event segment last year, which, just sucked. It was not good. And they had their promo last week trying to get Daniels, which again I didn't think was good. This promo was a bit meh, I think sometimes there's too much emphasis on, the Elite. I know it's all Elite wrestling, but the Dark Order, we need to overcome the Elite. We're not there. You can show the Elite they're not as powerful as the Dark Order. It's just a bit like, really, But this is obviously the direction they're going. Like I said, the Exalted One, people say, I think even I speculated that it might have been Marty Scurll. Obviously, that's not happening. Some people have said Hangman Adam Page. Obviously, they referenced him in this. They referred to him on commentary as the Dark Horse. I don't think it will be him, though. I think that will be slightly too obvious, and I'm not really sure that fits his character. Why would Hangman Adam Page be this leader of a cult-like faction? That, to me, just seems a little bit off base. It'd be a radical change of character, surely, for him. I think I'm still going to stick with my original thoughts, which were possibly Matt Hardy, a version of the broken Matt Hardy once he leaves WWE in March. I think potentially you could have, like I said, Luke Harper, now known as Brody Lee, back to his independent name, of course. I think that one, there's a story you could definitely tell there, with him being, saying, I've been a follower of cults and factions my whole life, but now I'm the leader. I realise how things are done. It references his Wyatt family past in the WWE, which he's, of course, best known for. I think that could work. I believe his non-complete cause is up around WrestleMania time as well, so around March. So they could certainly hang that out until then. I don't see AEW pulling the trigger on the payoff or the reveal of the Exalted One for a long period of time. There's a lot going on in AEW at the moment, so I don't think there's any need really to do that regarding the Exalted One. So again, the promo was a bit, but it's just, I guess, a reminder to keep the Dark Order fresh, or relatively fresh in the minds of the AEW fans. We next had Jon Moxley going up against Sammy Guevara. Jon Moxley came out in the Ford that he took from the Inner Circle last week, or he stole from the Inner Circle last week, wherever you want to land on that one. The crowd was red hot for Moxley, as always. There was no entrance music, though, for Moxley. He sort of just came out in the car and then sort of walked to the ring, it sucked a bit. So the action in the match, we had a nice springboard cutter from Sammy Guevara, followed by a twisting plancha, which is very good. I mean, he's a hell of an athlete, Sammy Guevara. He just gets better every week, doesn't he? He's going to be a real star for AEW, I have no doubts. Jon Moxley slapped the hell out of Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara then did this, again, like this unbelievable spot where Moxley standing on the top rope, Guevara runs, jumps, standing jump, right to the top rope, then hits a Spanish fly, followed by a flipping knee to the face. I mean, it was unbelievable. He is one hell of an athlete, Sammy Guevara. It's a moonsault press, but Moxley then counters into a chokehold, which Sammy Guevara then taps quickly. So it was a good match, fairly quick. We had a couple of ad breaks in this one, which hurt it. But Sammy Guevara, like I said, is just a hell of a talent. The crowd was quiet after the Moxley entrance. They took a while to get into this one, and I think that was a hangover, certainly, from the women's segment, excuse me. It took a while to get going, even with Moxley out there. But post-match, we have Chris Jericho's music start to play. The lights go out, and then the Inner Circle are in the ring. They attack Jon Moxley. Chris Jericho whips Moxley with the AEW World Championship. Hager kicks Jon Moxley in the balls which has become his staple ever since his Bellator no contest when he hit a low blow. The announcers played up that Moxley is such a loner, he has no friends, he dresses in his car, so no one's going to come out to save him, which was a nice touch, because a lot of the time during these beatdown segments, you go, where are the babyfaces? Surely if there's a babyface watching this, they should come out and save him. So they played up well that Moxley's got no friends, he's a loner, he comes through the crowd, he doesn't interact with anyone, so that makes sense. That's good logic there. See, they have logic for stuff like this, but they don't have logic for some of the spots in the Young Buck match. It just, oh, God. Then Chris Jericho removed a spike from his Painmaker jacket. So he has that Painmaker jacket where he has the sort of spikes all over it. So he takes a spike from it and then spikes Jon Moxley in the eye. Yes, Chris Jericho has gone full Road Warrior in WCW. They did that famous angle, which I believe actually got Dusty Rhodes removed from head booker in WCW, which eventually ended Dusty going to WWE, where the Road Warriors did the same. They stabbed Dusty Rhodes in the eye with a spike from their entrance gear. So I thought it was a good angle, this one. And it gives a realistic response from Moxley last week. Last week and the last couple of weeks, last week's main event angle, it was a comedy spot, really, about Moxley fooling them and taking the car anyway and smashing him with a bottle of champagne or whatever. If you think of this realistically, if someone, realistically, they smashed over their head with a bottle of champagne, they'd be dead. But if someone smashed you over the bottle of head with a bottle, he bottled someone, wouldn't your reaction be, okay, I'm going to stab this guy in the eye? It's a logical comeback, isn't it? Is it over the top? Maybe it's professional wrestling. Come on, like I said, it was just like the Dusty Rhodes Road Warriors angle. Moxley, says very loudly and audibly to the doctor, he just stabbed me in the effing eye, which I thought was great. So like I said, I thought it was a good angle. I thought it was a realistic response to Moxley embarrassing Jericho, the Inner Circle. It takes this angle back from comedy to seriousness now. This is serious. Moxley will want revenge. Is it slightly over the top? Yes, but I enjoyed it. And Tony Schiavone had a great line during this as well. Ortiz is out there as part of the Inner Circle. He's chanting, the best, he's the best. And Schiavone just goes, oh yeah, he's the best, my ass. Which I thought was great. I love when the announcers get so emotionally invested that they lash out at the competitors. They're just fans. That's they're the fans' voice, really, aren't they? So I thought it was great. This is followed up by a Chris Jericho backstage promo. He blames Jon Moxley for all of this. He says an eye for an eye. He then says he just kicked the shit out of Jon Moxley. Again, Chris Jericho, is he on a roll, or is he the only person that's allowed to say shit on TNT? Because it appears like he does that every week. But he says the next week on the Jericho Cruise, he'll do the exact same to the Jurassic Express. Says that he'll wipe the floor with Jungle Boy. Obviously, Jungle Boy went 10 minutes with Jericho at the end of last year, so they're still continuing that storyline and setting up the match for next week. And then he says to Jon Moxley, we'll see you around even if you can't see us. So this was a nice bow to the segment. Like I said, I thought the match was great between Moxley and Guevara. Guevara's an absolute star. If they had a mid-card championship, which they should introduce, Cody has talked about it. He doesn't like the term mid-card championship, but he's talked about having a secondary championship on the show. Sammy Guevara would be definitely the type of person who would benefit from it, I think. Benefit from those championship matches to elevate him to the next level, because he is a superstar waiting to happen. And like I said, I wasn't one of those people that thought the angle was too much of the stabbing in the eye. I thought it was good, and it sets up their feud to be a bit more serious now after that comedy. So I enjoyed it. Next, we had The Blade, The Butcher, and MJF, of course, with Wardlow at ringside, against QT Marshall, Dustin Rhodes, and the returning Diamond Dallas Page. Yes, DDP, at the age of 63 years old, is back in a ring, back on TNT, live in the year of 2020. Oh my God, it feels like it's 1997, 1998 all over again. Shout out to MGF here, who was wearing arguably one of the best shirts I've seen in the longest time, the I Banged DDP's daughter shirt with the diamond cutter signal. That's awesome, isn't it? That's awesome. I popped huge when I saw that shirt. DDP was out in full tights, wrestling boots, the whole 9 yards. You know, when he's competed on occasion for WWE since in these battle royals, he's come out in like jeans or anything like that. This was DDP in full wrestling garb. This was Diamond Dallas Page from the 1990s. And I'm not exaggerating. Go and watch it. He looked phenomenal. He looked in unbelievable shape. He looked in unbelievable shape just in general, you know, not for anyone his age. He looked in unbelievable shape anyway. But for someone who is 63 years old, oh my word, he looked phenomenal. He looked great. DDP Yoga works. Go get it. Buy it. DDPY. It works miracles. Mad. He looked like DDP. Apart from the hair, he looked like DDP from the 1990s. It was mad. We had a nice spot where MJF had the Dynamite Diamond ring on, punches Dustin Rhodes, and then Wardlow slyly takes the ring off. I thought that was nice. For the majority of the match, the team worked over Dustin Rhodes, who gets the hot tag to DDP. He bounces MJF's head off the turnbuckle 10 times. He bounces MJF's head off the turnbuckle on the other side of the ring. MJF did the Kurt Hennig turnbuckle spot, which I love. The spot where he hits him on the turnbuckle. The other guy jumps up onto the bottom rope and then does a flip off of it. Just oversell it. It's an oversell, but it's awesome. MJF then hit a low blow on DDP to sort of stop his momentum. Dustin Rhodes gets a tag in, hits his Canadian Destroyer on MJF, followed by a diamond cutter to MJF from DDP, but Blade breaks it up. For a second I thought, oh my god, MJF is going to put over DDP. MJF's like 23, putting over the 63-year-olds. There's 40 years between them and they're in the ring with each other. It's unbelievable. Then there was some dives to the outside, which was followed by DDP doing a dive from the top rope onto everyone on the outside at the age of 63. It wasn't about the match. It was just about DDP's a madman. He's a madman. He's 63 years old, diving from the outside. And it wasn't like when Ric Flair competed when he was like 60 or late 50s, and people were like, oh, this is a bit sad. I didn't feel that this was sad, because he obviously had limitations, but he didn't try to do a singles match or anything like that. He looked like DDP, and he worked like DDP. I thought he did a great job. So like I said, he does the dive to the outside. The crowd are popping huge, going crazy, but then MJF rolls up QT Marshall for the win. Like I said, the match itself, from a technical point of view, was it amazing? Of course it wasn't. But just the energy, and just the fact that DDP was doing what he was doing at his age and still putting in a high quality performance. Look, if you have DDP in the ring, you just want him to hit diamond cutters and leave, and that's what he did. He put on a performance. They ultimately put over MJF. Is it DDP's last match in the ring? I don't know. At 63 years old, it probably should be, but I mean, he's got the physique and the body and the health of someone that's like 33, not 63, so I don't think it's his last match. I could see him wanting to get in the ring again and do a match against MJF on a pay-per-view, or maybe on a Dynamite again on TNT, and fair play. All I can say is fair play, and Dallas did a great job, and it furthers MJF as this smarmy heel, and the Blade and the Butcher were kind of side to this. Nothing really happened with them, but it was all about MJF and DDP, who for me just stole the show. I thought they were phenomenal. Then we had the main event, which was Darby Allin versus Pac. The winner will face Jon Moxley next week on the Jericho Cruise to officially determine the number one contender for the AEW World Championship. I thought we had some nice opening sequences here with counters of every move, which led to a shotgun drop kick by Darby Allin, then a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker by Pac. I love a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker. Eddie Guerrero used to do the best tilt-a-whirl backbreaker on the likes of Rey Mysterio. He used to spin him around so quickly, it just looks brutal. You don't see it that often nowadays. It's quite a complex move to do, but it just looked awesome. Pac took it to another level in this match. He really did. He swung Darby Allin into the steel steps in a nice spot. He powerbombed Darby Allin onto the steel steps. But unfortunately, it was during a picture-in-picture in the ad break. They did show replays went back on the air, but it kind of takes you out of it for a spot that brutal. But I thought it looked awesome. And then these chairs, these table. God, I can't even talk. These stair spots. I'll get there eventually, guys. Absolutely banged up Darby's back and arm. They looked so cut up and bruised and knotted up. There was blood coming out of them, which was a good visual, but it looked like it hurt like hell. Darby made a bit of a comeback though. Hit a crucifix sort of bomb on Pac from the second rope. Did a coffin drop to Pac on the outside. And I mentioned it on social media. The coffin drop's quickly becoming sort of my favourite move in wrestling now. I don't know about it. It's something so dangerous about it. Obviously, he's not looking where he's going, and just the way that Darby sort of floats through midair as he does it. It's just an awesome move, and when he hits it to end a match, it's just a great ending to the match. How long he's able to do it for, I don't know, because there's such a high margin for error in that. But I love that move. I think it looks great. Darby then goes for a baseball slide to Pac from the outside, but Pac catches him in the apron and hits a sort of kick to Darby Allin. Shades of Fit Finlay with that one. Gets him back in the ring and then hits a hell of a lariat on Darby Allin. JBL, Stan Hansen would be proud of this one. I mean, just about knocks his head off. Then Pac, again, he just took it to another level. He powerbombed the hell out of Darby Allin, almost a version of like the Spirit Bomb by Keith Lee, where he throws him up so high, hits a high stack setup powerbomb, looked absolutely brutal, which was then followed by the Black Arrow to Darby Allin's back for the victory. And then like I said, I thought Pac just had that extra heel gear, that sneer that the best heels have. The best heels are the ones that cower off, but then once it's time to take it to that next level to really get his heat, they really have that edge, that violent nature to them, and I thought Pac showed it tonight, and that's a sign of a good heel. A great heel is having that extra gear, that just that sneer, that snarliness, that evilness that good heel has. So he's facing Jon Moxley next week to become the number one contender for the AEW World Championship. Post-match, Tony Schiavone is interviewing Pac. Pac says, I don't have to face Jon Moxley next week. You saw what happened earlier. I'm the new number one contender. You saw what happened to Moxley. He will forfeit next week. Tony Schiavone cuts him off, say, we're going to something in the back. I'm hearing something's going on backstage. We cut to Jon Moxley in an ambulance, getting wheeled away. He's got a patch over his eye, looks like a pirate. Paul Burchill would be proud. But as the ambulance is going away, Jon Moxley kicks out of the ambulance. He walks through the arena, walks to the ramp. He says he'll be there next week and he'll kick Pac's ass. And that AEW World Championship belongs to him. So that was the show. I enjoyed the Moxley stare down at the end. Shows that he's no coward. He's a bit of a white meat babyface element to him. I saw some criticism online saying, "Can you tell Jon Moxley he's not Stone Cold Steve Austin?" I compared him to Steve Austin. I think he has those similar tendencies. His character is certainly similar. Is he trying to be Stone Cold Steve Austin? Absolutely not. He's trying to be Jon Moxley. He's trying to be who he is. That's Jon Moxley. I don't think he's ripping off Steve Austin at all. I think it's been too long since we've had a character like that. That's, legitimate and doesn't give a damn, isn't exactly a white meat babyface. He's that dark anti-hero babyface. They always work, and we haven't had enough of them. So I enjoyed the Moxley stare down with Pac. Pac versus Moxley next week should be great. I expect Moxley to win against all the odds next week, and then he'll face Jericho for the World Championship at Revolution. Considering the angles that they've had so far, it's inevitable we're having that Moxley-Jericho match, isn't it? I can't imagine the main event of AEW Revolution is going to be Pac versus Jericho, guys. I don't think that one's happening. In terms of what's next for Darby Allin, who does he face? I mean, that's a legitimate question. I don't know. Whoever he does, he needs to get his wins back, to be honest. I mean, this is another big match that he's lost. Obviously, he lost the World Championship match to Jericho. Now he's lost his number one contenders match again. So you don't want to have that, that smell on him that he can't win the big one. I think he's only 23 as well. He's super young. You don't want to have that thing of, they can't win it. About building new stars up, the way to build stars up is not to have them in the big matches, but is to have them win the big matches. So whoever Darby Allin faces next is crucial, I think, for him in terms of his standing in AEW, and most importantly, he needs to win. But what did you think of tonight's show? Let us know your thoughts on tonight's episode in the comments section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Once we get to that magic number of 1,000 subscribers, we'll be able to do live reviews of every show and really get you, our great followers, more involved in our reviews. Don't forget, you can follow WrestleNews365 on all of our social media platforms right now. That's Twitter at 365Wrestle, Facebook at WrestleNews365, Instagram at WrestleNews365. You can also visit our website, WrestleNews365.com, for all the very latest news, reviews, exclusive series, and much more. You can also support WrestleNews365 by purchasing our merchandise. Visit WN365merch.com. That's WN365merch.com for all of our merch and apparel. If you do purchase an item, be sure to post it on social media so we can share it with all of our followers. We really appreciate all your support. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you've come across this video today. We really appreciate it, and I'll speak with you again very soon.